Money has been broken for a long time. Most people just don't know when it happened or why. The core problem is simple. At some point in history, the speed at which you could send a transaction and the speed at which that transaction could actually settle in real, final terms stopped being the same thing. That gap looks small. It isn't. Everything that's wrong with modern money lives inside it. This problem didn't start with the telegraph. The Medici banking family in 15th century Florence had already figured out that you didn't need to move gold to move value. A letter of credit could travel from Florence to London in days. The gold it represented might never move at all. The abstraction of money from physical settlement is at least 700 years old. Then came the telegraph, and the gap that had existed quietly for centuries suddenly became a chasm. A transaction order could now travel from New York to London in minutes. The gold to settle it still took weeks by ship. For the first time in history, money and information were operating at completely different speeds, and the financial system had to adapt. The financial system's answer was centralization. If you couldn't move gold fast enough, you moved ledger entries instead. Banks and central banks became the hub that everyone was forced to trust. It wasn't a conspiracy. It was an engineering solution to a real problem. But it came with a cost. Whoever controlled the ledger controlled the money. And once you had centralized ledgers, fractional reserve banking could scale in ways it never could before. The gold in the vault stayed the same. But the paper claims on that gold multiplied. Reserve ratios varied widely across institutions and time, but the direction of the trend was consistent. The system was building leverage, and leverage makes everything fragile. When World War I arrived, the fragility became a policy decision. Nation after nation suspended gold convertibility, not because the system mechanically collapsed, but because governments chose to fund the war by printing money. This wasn't new. Britain had done it during the Napoleonic Wars a century earlier. But the scale in 1914 was different. And this time, the world never fully went back. There's a persistent myth that debasement became possible with fiat currency. It didn't. Roman emperors were shaving coins and reducing silver content at scale nearly 2,000 years ago. What changed wasn't the incentive. Rulers have always wanted to spend more than they had. What changed was the visibility. When money became ledger entries, the public lost the ability to see debasement happening in real time. The logical endpoint of the telegraph-era compromise is the world we live in now. Roughly 160 national currencies, each defined by its own centralized ledger, each losing value at its own rate, each trapping the people who use it inside a monetary system they had no say in creating. It works until it doesn't, and the people who pay the cost of it failing are rarely the people who designed it. But the real cost of all this isn't abstract. It's a jar of savings that buys less every decade. A salary that stays the same while everything around it gets more expensive. A retirement that was planned carefully and still came up short. The system doesn't fail dramatically for most people. It just quietly takes a little more than it should, year after year, in a way that's hard to see and harder to fight. In 2008, something new appeared. Bitcoin proposed for the first time a way to settle transactions digitally without a centralized intermediary. No bank holding the ledger. No government defining the unit. The gap between transaction and settlement, open since at least the telegraph era, had a potential answer. Not a perfect one, but a structurally different one. It's worth being honest about what Bitcoin is and isn't. Settlement takes around an hour for finality. The network handles a fraction of the transactions per second that legacy systems manage. It is not faster money. What it is, or claims to be, is money that doesn't require you to trust anyone in the middle. That's a different kind of value. Whether it's enough value to matter at scale is still an open question. The Medici bankers, the telegraph operators, the central bankers, and Satoshi Nakamoto were all working on the same problem. How do you move value across distance and time without it being corrupted in transit? 700 years in, we have one new proposed answer. Whether it holds, at scale, under pressure, over time, is the question this century will answer. Not us. Not yet.